What happens when one of Hollywood's most respected actors walks into what should be a routine morning talk show interview, only to face a host who seems determined to tear him down on live television? In just 32 seconds of one particular exchange, Michael Strahan would go from confident host to the man who pushed Tom Hardy too far, sparking an on-air meltdown that nobody saw coming. The lights were bright that morning in the studio. Tom Hardy sat in the chair across from the panel, relaxed but focused. He had been doing press for weeks, talking about his latest film, answering the same questions over and over with patience and professionalism. This was supposed to be just another stop on the publicity tour. Nothing special, nothing complicated. Michael Strahan kicked things off with what seemed like a friendly enough tone. "So, Tom, great to have you here this morning. We've all been excited to talk to you about the new movie." Tom nodded, giving a small smile. "Thanks for having me. Happy to be here." Robin Roberts jumped in from her seat next to Strahan. "We've been hearing incredible things about your performance. The early reviews are absolutely glowing." "That's very kind," Tom replied. "The whole team worked really hard on this one. I'm proud of what we made together." George Stephanopoulos leaned forward from his position on the panel. "Let's talk about the character you play. He's quite different from some of your other roles. What drew you to this part?" Tom took a moment before answering, the way he always did when he wanted to give a thoughtful response. "I think what interested me most was the internal struggle. This is someone who is fighting against his own nature, trying to be better than what the world expects him to be. That's something I find really compelling. The script gave me room to explore vulnerability in ways that I don't always get to do." Robin smiled warmly. "I love that. Vulnerability is such an important part of any performance." "Absolutely," Tom agreed, and the director really encouraged that. "We had long conversations about how to make this character feel authentic, how to avoid the traps of making him either too heroic or too damaged. It was a delicate balance." Strahan interjected, and there was something in his tone that shifted the energy in the room. "But you've played a lot of tough guys, haven't you? The brooding, intense type. Is that just your comfort zone at this point?" The other hosts glanced at each other. It was a slightly odd question, delivered with an edge that didn't match the friendly conversation they'd been having. Tom handled it smoothly. "I wouldn't say it's a comfort zone. Every role is different, even if there are surface similarities. I take on roles that challenge me as an actor, that push me to explore different aspects of human behavior. If they happen to share certain qualities, that's because I'm drawn to complex characters, not because I'm playing it safe or sticking to what's easy." The other hosts glanced at each other. It was a slightly odd question, but not completely out of line. Tom handled it smoothly. "I wouldn't say it's a comfort zone. I take on roles that challenge me as an actor, if they happen to share certain qualities. And that's because I'm drawn to complex characters, not because I'm playing it safe." Strahan wasn't letting it go. "Right, but I've heard some critics say you have a tendency to mumble your way through performances. There was actually a whole article about it last year. Do you think that's a fair assessment?" Tom's expression remained neutral, but there was a flicker of something in his eyes. "I think actors make different choices. Some choose clarity over authenticity. I prefer to make choices that feel true to the character, even if that means the delivery is less polished." "Less polished," Strahan repeated, nodding slowly. "That's an interesting way to put it. Some might say it's just hard to understand what you're saying half the time." Robin Roberts shifted uncomfortably in her seat, glancing between the two men. "Michael, I don't think that's entirely fair." "No, it's a legitimate question," Strahan cut her off, his tone brooking no argument. "People want to know. I mean, we've all been there, watching a movie and turning to each other asking, 'What did he just say?' Tom, do you ever worry that let's call it your style, actually makes it hard for audiences to connect with your characters? That Maybe they're too busy trying to figure out your words to actually care about the story? Tom's jaw tightened slightly, but he kept his composure, his voice measured and calm. I think if you look at the response to my work, audiences seem to connect just fine. My films perform well. People relate to the characters. Critics, for the most part, understand what I'm trying to do. I make choices as an actor that serve the story and the character, in choices that I believe in. If someone doesn't like those choices, that's absolutely their right. But I'm not going to apologize for my craft or change my approach because one person thinks I should be easier to understand. Your craft, Strahan repeated, and there was definitely an edge now, a sharpness that hadn't been there at the start of the interview. That's an interesting word, because I've talked to a lot of actors over the years. I mean a lot, and most of them seem to think craft means being understood by the people watching. It means communicating clearly. That's kind of the whole point of acting, isn't it? To communicate? George tried to steer things back. I think what we're all trying to get at here is how you approach these complex roles. Tom, can you walk us through your process? How do you prepare for a character like this? But Strahan talked right over him, his voice louder now, more insistent. Or maybe we should talk about something else entirely. Tom, you're known for being pretty private, right? Some might even say difficult when it comes to interviews. I've heard stories from other journalists about you just shutting down or refusing to answer perfectly reasonable questions. Tom's eyes narrowed slightly, but his voice remained even. I value my privacy, yes. I don't think that makes me difficult. It makes me someone who likes to keep his personal life personal, who believes there should be boundaries between the work and everything else. That's not unreasonable. Sure, Strahan nodded, but his expression said he didn't buy it for a second. But you've walked out of interviews before? Haven't you? When the questions get too tough or too personal? I mean, there's video evidence of it online. I've ended interviews when they've become disrespectful, Tom clarified, his patience clearly wearing thin. There's a significant difference between tough questions and disrespectful behavior, and I think most people can recognize that difference when they see it. Ginger Z, who had been quiet until now, clearly uncomfortable with the direction the interview had taken, spoke up from her spot on the panel. Tom, I think what we're all really interested in is just learning more about you and your work and this incredible new film. The movie looks absolutely fantastic, and we've all been looking forward to this conversation. Tom gave her an appreciative nod, grateful for the lifeline. Thank you, Ginger. I appreciate that. That's what I came here to talk about. But Strahan couldn't leave well enough alone. He leaned forward in his chair, his body language aggressive now. Let's be honest, though, Tom. You've got this whole reputation of being this serious, method actor type. The guy who stays in character between takes, who does all this intense preparation. But how much of that is real, and how much of it is just an act, just a performance to seem more important or more dedicated than you actually are? The studio went completely quiet. You could have heard a pin drop. Robin Roberts looked genuinely shocked, her mouth slightly open in disbelief. George Stephanopoulos' eyes went wide, and he sat forward in his chair as if he couldn't quite believe what he'd just heard. Even the crew members visible in the background seemed to freeze, their movements suspended as they processed what had just been said on live television. Tom stared at Strahan for a long, tense moment. His face was unreadable, but there was a dangerous stillness about him. Excuse me? What did you just say? I'm just saying, Strahan continued, leaning back in his chair like he owned the place, like he was completely comfortable with what he'd just done. There are a lot of actors in Hollywood who do great work, really great work, without all the drama and mystery and intensity. Maybe you're just taking yourself a bit too seriously? Maybe the Emperor has no clothes, you know what I mean? Michael, come on, Robin interjected, her voice firm and sharp, more forceful than she'd been all interview. That's not appropriate. That's completely out of line. What? Strahan looked at her with mock innocence, spreading his hands wide. I'm just asking questions. I'm having a real conversation. Isn't that what we're supposed to do here? Isn't that what journalism is supposed to be about? Tom's voice was calm when he spoke, but there was steel underneath it, an unmistakable edge of controlled anger. You're not asking questions. You're making accusations disguised as questions. You're stating opinions as if they're facts. There's a difference, and you know it. You're experienced enough to know exactly what you're doing right now. Oh, so now I don't know how to do my job, Strahan shot back, his own anger rising to match Tom's controlled fury. That's rich coming from someone who mumbles through half his scenes and walks out of interviews when they get challenging. George stood up slightly from his chair, his face flushed. Michael, that's enough. That's more than enough. Tom is our guest here. And as our guest, he should be able to handle a few tough questions, Strahan insisted, his jaw set. Unless he's too sensitive for that. Is that it, Tom? Are you too sensitive to handle a real interview? Tom remained remarkably composed, though everyone in the studio could see the anger simmering beneath the surface, the tension in his shoulders, the tightness around his eyes. I can handle tough questions just fine. I've been doing this for years. What I don't handle, what I refuse to accept, is disrespect. And what you're doing right now is disrespectful. Not just to me, Chow, but to everyone watching who tuned in expecting a professional interview, who expected to learn something about the film or about the craft of acting. Professional, Strahan scoffed, shaking his head. You want to talk about professional? Let's talk about how you showed up 20 minutes late today. Let's talk about how you kept everyone waiting. I was 10 minutes late because of traffic, Tom corrected, his voice tight. 10 minutes, not 20. And I apologized to everyone when I arrived. I apologized to you, to your colleagues, to the crew, to the producers. I took responsibility for it. Did you, though? Strahan pressed, leaning forward again. Because from what I heard, you just walked in like you owned the place. Like everyone should be grateful you showed up at all. Expecting everyone to work around your schedule. Robin Roberts had had enough. Her face was flushed, and she looked genuinely upset now. Michael, stop. Just stop. This is completely out of line. This is beyond out of line. Strahan turned to her with visible irritation. Stay out of this, Robin. I'm conducting an interview here. This is my segment. No, she said firmly, her voice rising. You're attacking our guest for no good reason. This isn't an interview anymore. This is something else entirely, and it needs to stop right now. Ginger Z nodded in agreement. She's right. This has gone way too far. But Strahan was on a roll now, and he wasn't backing down. He turned back to Tom with a condescending smile. You know what I think? I think you're used to people treating you like you're special. Like you're some kind of artistic genius. But you're just an actor. You read lines that other people write. You stand where the director tells you to stand. There's nothing special about that. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the cameras seemed to hold their breath. Tom's voice, when he finally spoke, was quiet but clear. I've done hundreds of interviews. I've been asked hard questions, personal questions, questions I didn't want to answer, and I've always tried to be respectful, even when I disagreed with the premise. But this, he gestured at Strahan. This isn't journalism. This isn't even a conversation. This is you trying to belittle me. Because, why? Because it makes you feel important? Because you think it makes good television? I think it makes honest television, Strahan replied. I think audiences are tired of celebrities who think they're above being challenged. Challenged is fine, Tom said, but you're not challenging me. You're insulting me, and I'm done with it. George tried one more time to salvage the situation. Tom, please, why don't we take a quick break and... There's nothing to salvage here, Tom interrupted, not rudely, but with finality. I came here in good faith to talk about a film that I'm proud of, that a lot of people worked incredibly hard on. Instead, I've been ambushed by someone who seems to have a personal problem with me. I don't have a personal problem with you, Strahan insisted. I just think you're overrated and I'm not afraid to say it. That was it. That was the line that couldn't be uncrossed. Robin Roberts put her face in her hands. George Stephanopoulos looked like he wanted to disappear. Ginger Z was shaking her head in disbelief. Tom stood up slowly, removing his microphone with deliberate care. You know what the sad thing is? I actually used to respect you. I thought you were a good interviewer, someone who knew how to have real conversations with people. But this, he placed the microphone on the table. This is beneath you, or at least it should be. Oh, so now you're walking out, Strahan said, gesturing dramatically. What a surprise. The moment things get real, Tom Hardy runs away. Tom paused, turning back to face him. I'm not running away from anything. I'm choosing not to participate in whatever this is. There's a difference. Convenient excuse, Strahan muttered. Michael, please, Robin begged. Just stop. But Strahan wasn't finished. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You actors think you can just walk away whenever you don't like something. You think the rules don't apply to you. Tom's patience, which had been remarkable up to this point, finally snapped. The rules? You want to talk about rules? The rule is you treat your guests with basic human decency. The rule is you don't invite someone onto your show just to tear them down. The rule is you conduct yourself with professionalism and integrity. You've broken every single one of those rules today. I've been doing this job for years, Strahan fired back. I don't need some actor telling me how to do it. Then maybe you should start acting like it, Tom replied. Because right now, you're behaving like someone who got a little bit of power and doesn't know how to handle it. George stood up completely now, moving between them. Okay, everyone needs to calm down. I am calm, Tom said, and he was. His voice hadn't risen once throughout the entire exchange. I'm just not going to sit here and be disrespected on live television. Strahan stood up too, squaring his shoulders. You think you're so much better than everyone else, don't you? That's your whole thing. The mysterious, brooding artist who's too good for us regular people. I've never said I'm better than anyone, Tom responded evenly. But I do expect to be treated with the same respect I show others. And you haven't shown me any respect since I sat down. Robin Roberts stood as well, positioning herself next to Tom. Tom, on behalf of Good Morning America, I apologize. This is not how we conduct interviews. This is not who we are. I appreciate that, Robin, Tom said sincerely, but I think it's time for me to go. You don't have to leave, George added quickly. We can start over. Do the interview properly. Tom shook his head. I appreciate the offer, but no. The damage is done. Strahan let out a bitter laugh. Of course you're leaving. Can't handle the heat. Tom looked at him one final time. This isn't heat. This is just meanness, and I don't have time for it. He turned to the other hosts. Robin, George, Ginger, thank you for trying. I'm sorry this turned into what it did. Don't apologize, Ginger said. You have nothing to apologize for. As Tom started to walk off the set, Strahan called after him. This is going to be everywhere. And everyone's going to see you walking out. Tom stopped, but didn't turn around. Let them. I'd rather be known as someone who walked away from disrespect than someone who sat there and took it. Real tough guy, Strahan sneered. That's when Tom did turn around, and there was something in his eyes that made even Strahan take a half step back. You keep using that phrase like it means something. Like being tough is about staying in a situation where you're being treated poorly. But real strength is knowing when to walk away. Real strength is not letting someone else's insecurity and need for attention turn you into something you're not. My insecurity? Strahan looked genuinely offended now. You're the one who can't handle a simple interview. This stopped being a simple interview the moment you decided to attack me instead of talk to me, Tom said. And everyone watching knows it. Robin stepped forward, her voice gentle but firm. Tom, please know that Michael's behavior today does not represent this show or this network. We value you, and we value all our guests." "I know, Robin. Thank you." Tom gave her a small, sad smile. "But I can't stay here. I won't stay here." George moved closer as well. "We understand completely. And again, we're so sorry this happened." Tom nodded at both of them, then looked past them to where several producers were standing with horrified expressions on their faces. "I hope you got good footage," he said, not unkindly. "Share because that's all you're getting from me today." One of the producers started to speak, but Tom held up a hand. "I'm not angry at you. I know you're just doing your jobs. But this," he gestured to the set, to Strahan, to the whole situation, "this isn't what I signed up for." Strahan, incredibly, still wasn't done. "You signed up to promote your movie. That's what you signed up for. But I guess it's only worth it if everyone kisses your feet the whole time." Tom closed his eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath. When he opened them again, he looked directly at Strahan with something close to pity. "You really don't see it, do you? You don't see how out of line you've been. How unprofessional. How cruel." "Cruel?" Strahan laughed. "I asked you some questions. If you can't handle that—" "You didn't ask questions," Tom interrupted, his voice rising slightly for the first time. "You made personal attacks. You questioned my integrity as an artist. You called me overrated to my face. You mocked the way I speak. You accused me of being difficult and arrogant without any basis. That's not journalism, Michael. That's just bullying." The word hung in the air. Bullying. Robin nodded slowly. "He's right, Michael. That's exactly what this was." Strahan looked around at his co-hosts, at the crew, at everyone staring at him. "You're all acting like I committed some kind of crime. I was just trying to have a real conversation instead of the usual promotional nonsense." "There's a way to have a real conversation," George said quietly. This wasn't it. Tom picked up his jacket from where it had been hanging on the back of his chair. "I've been in this industry for a long time. I've dealt with difficult interviews, hostile journalists, people who genuinely wanted to challenge me. And you know what? I welcomed those conversations because they came from a place of curiosity and intellectual honesty. But this came from somewhere else entirely, and I won't be part of it." He started walking toward the exit again, and this time, no one tried to stop him. Except Strahan, who apparently couldn't help himself. "Run away, Tom. That's what you're good at, right? Running away when things get tough." Tom stopped one more time. He turned around slowly, and when he spoke, his voice was tired. "You know what's funny? I actually feel sorry for you. Because somewhere along the way, you forgot what this job is supposed to be about. It's supposed to be about connecting with people, learning their stories, helping audiences understand them better. Instead, you turned it into some kind of ego trip where you get to tear people down to make yourself feel bigger." "That's not what I did," Strahan protested, but his voice lacked conviction now. "That's exactly what you did," Tom replied. "And the worst part is, you don't even realize it." Robin walked over to Tom, her hand on his arm. "Tom, I am so sorry. Please know that we will be addressing this internally." "I appreciate that, Robin. You're a class act." Tom looked at George and Ginger. "You all are. It's just him." Strahan's face flushed red. "Oh, so now I'm the bad guy? I'm the villain in this story?" "You made yourself the villain," Tom said simply. "I just showed up to talk about a movie." There was a long, uncomfortable silence. The cameras were still rolling, capturing every moment of the disintegration of what should have been a routine interview. Finally, Tom spoke one last time. "I hope you figure out what you're really angry about, Michael, because it's clearly not me. I'm just the person who happened to be sitting in front of you today. But there's something deeper going on, and until you deal with that, you're going to keep having moments like this." "Don't psychoanalyze me," Strahan snapped. "I'm not. I'm just making an observation based on what I've experienced here." Tom adjusted his jacket. Goodbye, everyone, and good luck. With that, and Tom Hardy walked off the set of Good Morning America. His footsteps echoed in the suddenly silent studio as he made his way toward the exit. The crew members parted to let him through, some of them looking sympathetic, others looking shocked by what they had just witnessed. Back on the set, the remaining hosts stood in awkward silence. Robin Roberts looked at Strahan with an expression of deep disappointment. George Stephanopoulos rubbed his temples like he had a headache. Ginger Z stared at the floor. "What?" Strahan said defensively. "Why is everyone looking at me like that?" "Because you just drove away one of the most respected actors in Hollywood for absolutely no reason," Robin said, her voice shaking slightly. "Because you turned a simple promotional interview into a personal attack. Because you embarrassed yourself. On this show, and all of us." "I was just doing my job," Strahan insisted, but he sounded less certain now. "No," George said firmly. "You were doing the opposite of your job. Your job is to make guests feel comfortable enough to open up and share. Your job is to ask probing questions. Sure, but with respect and intelligence. Your job is definitely not to insult people and drive them off the set." Strahan looked around at his colleagues, perhaps finally realizing the magnitude of what had just happened. "He's the one who walked out. That's on him." "Michael," Ginger said softly, "you called him overrated. To his face. On live television. What did you think was going to happen?" "I thought he would defend himself. I thought we'd have an interesting conversation." Robin shook her head. "You didn't want a conversation. You wanted a confrontation, and you got one. Congratulations." "This is ridiculous," Strahan muttered. "Everyone is so sensitive now. You can't say anything without people getting offended." "There's a difference between being sensitive and expecting basic respect," George countered. "Tom Hardy has been nothing but professional in every interview I've ever seen him do. He came here today ready to talk about his work, and you attacked him from the moment he sat down." "I didn't attack him. I challenged him." "You attacked him," Robin repeated firmly, "and we all saw it. The viewers saw it, and I guarantee you they're not going to side with you on this one." The stage manager approached cautiously. We're still live. Should we cut to commercial?" Robin looked at the camera, then back at the stage manager. "Yes, cut to commercial. And now." As the commercial break began, the full weight of what had happened seemed to settle over everyone. Producers rushed onto the set, their faces pale. Other crew members whispered to each other, glancing at Strahan with expressions that ranged from anger to disbelief. Through it all, Strahan stood there, his earlier confidence slowly crumbling as he began to realize that maybe, just maybe, he had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. That in his attempt to create a memorable television moment, he had created the wrong kind of memorable. The kind that ends careers instead of makes them. And somewhere outside the studio, Tom Hardy was walking away with his dignity intact. Having refused to participate in a spectacle that had nothing to do with his work and everything to do with one host's need to prove something that didn't need proving.